Good morning, afternoon, good evening. Today is September 3rd, 2024. Good, got the year right. You've joined the Kubeflow community call, and this call is being recorded. It is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. And we're here today to provide this Kubeflow community meeting update. Typically, we start off with a release update, and we have folks from the release team that provide those updates. I don't know, Ricardo, are you available at this point?
I'm here, Josh.
Would you like to walk us through any updates that you feel are necessary?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so um, release updates. Just a quick thing about the 190. We are still waiting for people to review and the move to the official Kubeflow channel, the video about the release. So there is the open PR here and the release notes for the Kubeflow 09. It's just a reminder for you guys to take a look at it. The release went very well. I believe you guys are going to enjoy the release video we made for the 19 release. It was a great release, by the way. And speaking of 19, we are now working with some working groups who would like to cut the releases with some critical bug fixes that needs a patch release for 19, the 191. Those working groups are the notebooks, the AutoML and training working groups, the platform working group, and we're waiting for them to establish a timeline for the 191. And we will take a look at the remaining issues and see if it worth waiting until we get them for 191 or if it needs a 192. There is something that we'll be discussing in the release team meetings. So some of the fixes are in the notebooks. There are some fixes also in the manifest, which are involved with the OAuth proxy and OIDC configuration for all deployments. And I guess there are some changes in the images for the notebooks. The AutoML training working group didn't enter into any details on their bug fixes for AutoML, Cadet, and training operator. I'll be waiting for them, but I expect that more than the bug fixes, if they can help me establishing a good timeline for us to get the 191 release will be great. And yeah, that's it for 19 and 191. For 110, we opened the issue 740 for Kubeflow 110 to create the 110 release team. We are still open for volunteers at this moment. We got a good number of volunteers so far. Now we need to figure out if all of them already fulfilled the only requirement we have for the being part of the release team, which will be part of the Kubeflow GitHub org members. This is not something that will this is not a classification way like you're not if you're not eligible so far, we can help you become eligible so we can get more contributors for the project. But yeah, this is something that we need to figure out and among the list who needs that onboarding help. Okay. Like I said, we have a good number of volunteers so far, but I'm still concerned about the most important roles for the release team, the product manager, and the release team. So we're still looking for ways to fulfill those requirements. The release timeline, we believe that we can have 110 between February and March next year. It depends mostly on when we can establish the release team for 110 and when we can provide the roadmap items for Kubeflow 110. We need to work with all the working groups to see if they have any plans or any tracker issue for a roadmap to 110. And then we will compile everything in a list, and then we'll send to the community repo for the roadmap items for 110. Guess that's it. I would say we are green to yellow to the 110 release because my concern is still about the important roles for the 110 product manager and release manager. We need people who can lead the team with no issue so far. And we don't want to put anyone in a storm alone to handle all of the issues that belongs to the product manager and the release manager. That's why we are also looking for people who shadow the release manager role so we can get people prepared for the next 2 or 3 releases for Kubeflow. I guess that's it for now about the release updates. The floor is open for any questions or comments.
Yeah,
I'll
so
take that.
the most important update is like the thing that what and how long are you planning to wait for the 1.9.1 cut? Because if it's more than like a week or two, we should be cutting with that manifest fix as soon as it's merged, pretty much, once we've tested it. Just because it's causing just so many problems with people. I mean, I do want to reiterate to users that you should be using a distribution. If you want to use the manifests, you are going to be supporting yourself and running into issues like what we have found here. Of course, this is quite a significantly complicated issue to fix, which is the auth, but this is part of the reason why distributions exist. But so that people can use it on EKS, it would be nice if we could cut 1.9.1 as soon as possible. Because it breaks EKS right now.
Right. So the working groups are notebooks, platform, and training and AutoML, who are providing updates that they want to bring into the one-on-one. Okay. Platform working group, I believe 90% of the issues are done. I know that there are some shared issues between notebooks and platform to fix. And there's AutoML and training that I don't have the full list, but it looks like there are not much. So yeah, up to you, Matthew. Do you believe that we have enough bug fixes that could fulfill for a 1.9 that could be a good candidate for 191? Let me know. We can start asking for updates to the other working groups, and then we can cut 191. Otherwise, we can wait a week or so to have more updates on the notebooks.
We need to get that merged, right? So it's more like that needs to be reviewed and merged, which I'll point to in a minute. But like that PR, it's the one under 191. But the that yeah, it's in the middle of your screen, Josh. But the it's the OAuth 2.1. But so what I'm saying is like we can't delay that fix on anything else. It's just it's stopping people adopting the project. So like it like literally it's absolute in my mind it's completely fine if we just once we all agree that this is the solution to this. There's one person who's raised something that I actually encountered in deploy KF as well, and I need to apply the same fix here to the manifests, but which is the accumulation of CSRF cookies, but whatever. Effectively like it's just this is so critical that nothing else really matters, you know. Like so once this is reviewed, we should cut a 1.9.1 immediately. Unless there's like only a week delay kind of thing, that'd be the most I'd ever give. There is one other fix that I guess we could do as well. Like we've already fixed, and the other critical issue was the fact that notebooks in the manifest, again, the default manifest, not any distribution, were shipped with the latest tag rather than with the actual 1.9 tag, which is really bad.
Okay, yeah, I get that. All right, so let's prioritize this. Is that the only PR that needs prioritization, or there are others?
Yeah, this is a pretty complicated PR. It changes, it fixes how the author is done. The author, I mean, it still doesn't make it perfect, again, because it's not going to solve everyone's issues, and that's the point of distributions. But it at least puts everything at a base which doesn't not work, and it also it does make it a lot less messy. Like right now, Kubeflow, when you're putting it on a cluster with Istio already, it would really mess your cluster up, the 1.9 manifests. But this will at least make it a little bit easier. Again, still complicated if you want to use your own Istio, but that's not really a requirement of the main project. It fixes a lot of auth problems. It also just makes the whole flow a lot less crazy. Like, anyway, it's really hard to go into without people knowing a lot about auth, but effectively, there's three kind of types of auth flows, and this kind of it stops. There was some weirdness going on where multiple different pieces were validating the tokens hundreds of times. Aside the actual issue that was preventing EKS, there's like token validation happening everywhere. Requests that didn't need validation were getting forwarded to OAuth2 proxy for no reason. Things were getting validated when anyway, there's so much stuff going on. It's not worth going into. All I'm saying is, if you're a distribution, please be aware that there is a very serious issue with 1.9.0 when it comes to running on EKS. There we go.
Okay,
And look at that
I get
PR.
it. Okay, thanks for raising that up. I think Chase has a raised hand.
Yeah, just a question here, especially since we don't have conformance yet, right? We're still trying to figure things out as we graduate, and move up as a community. So if we have a user, because Matthew, you said we recommend you use a distribution. Is that the official community sentiment? Or else what are our guarantees, or how do we handle support internally if there's an issue with manifests for other users?
So historically, we agreed that distributions would be the primary method of distributing Kubeflow, but that was a long time ago. So technically, that was official. You have brought up a topic that we don't need to get into explicitly right now, but I would love the leads, if you will, what are they called, steering committee, to kind of help guide this, which is, I do think the manifests, they should be usable by very advanced users, of course, but I think the primary like customer, if you will, of the manifest should be distributions, in the same way that, the Linux kernel can be used by end users, but is mostly used by distributions. And similarly, the Kubernetes core open source is also, you can deploy it yourself if you wish, but it is mostly distributed by distributions, either paid ones or free ones. That's how the reason for that is not because people can't use them. Again, they're allowed to. It's just that for most users, the actual experience is going to be very bad in a production setting, at least, trying to use the manifest directly. In a non-production testing, sure, but like configuring everything and connecting it to your specific environment, whatever that happens to be, it's something that we as a community can't support. Obviously, it's too diverse.
Okay, I believe this could be a discussion for the main agenda if there's a need for more discussion. As for the release, I'll help you prioritize this PR, Matthew, and we'll work with the other working groups to see if they are everything set for cutting the 191 release, and then I'll let you know if you can cut your 191 release so we can have 191 for Kubeflow.
Yeah, so it mainly just needs Kimonos and Julius to review that. I'll push the one commit that person, I mean, it strictly isn't a breaking change, it's just it prevents kind of an issue where it can be hard to fix. Again, a lot of these issues I'm just surprised weren't discovered earlier. I think it's just because the manifests, people weren't really testing it in any production capacity, and some of them are hard to identify, but there's some issues that I just don't understand how they got in. But
yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'd like to as part of the 110 release team onboarding, I really want to find people who could volunteer as a testing lead, because this is one of the roles that is part of the release team. And one of the things I saw a biggest issue in 1.9 is that we have lack of people testing the base code. So probably we can work around this for 110 release team, but I cannot commit as for now, because we're still looking for volunteers to form the new release team. Let's see if there are people who would like to volunteer as the testing lead, and then we can try to mitigate some of these potential issues for notebooks and manifests and so on. Alrighty. Any other questions, comments? Okay, back to you, Josh.
Alrighty.
Let's let Francis go next. I don't want to keep talking.
Sorry, thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I had to drop it at the half-hour mark. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on discussion last week, and big thank you to Josh on helping me draft. There was a Word document put together. I created a PR with like some draft structure of what a proposal could look like. Josh, just so you know, it's the exact document you talked about, and if you click view file, you can actually see the what the template looks like. If you go to preview mode, I think. Yes. So, and there's some. Yeah, scroll down, and I think you get actually to the checklists. Let's see. Scroll down further, please. Oh, there you go. Yeah, the metrics. Yeah, so that's the checklist section. And so really this is just an overview of like what a form would look like for someone to apply. And there's a process that I added in the PR. And so Josh and I spent some time going back and forth on like, you know, what this would look like. And this is really meant to be a draft. But I thought that this could help facilitate a conversation about, hey, are we comfortable with this approach? Yeah. And I would be happy to fill one out for Feast as an example to make it concrete. So this was explicit ask was from the steering committee to review this and see if they had any feedback about, again, Feast being included into the Kubeflow manifest and also being a part of the data working group.
Yeah, so I see this as having, gosh, Fernando, how many is that? About 50 different parameters that we're asking the projects to potentially fill in. And we tried to do some of them through checkboxes to minimize the work. I think orders of magnitude on some of these things are probably good enough. You know, we tried to be fairly comprehensive, but you know, the list of items here could be extended some, but in general, I think that there's a lot of data that potentially is captured in this type of form that should allow folks to evaluate whether a project is, you know, adjacent, well-positioned, potentially a good candidate to be perhaps an add-on or a core. And I think that there's still some process that needs to go along with this, but at least collecting the data. Francisco, I think you've done a pretty good job.
And actually, Josh, if you go back to the PR,
Yeah.
I proposed an actual explicit process as well. If you go to a new edition process. Oh, no, actually, you can stay in the PR. Yeah, you can just click on file change. That's fine.
So
Or
is that in conversations or is it somewhere else?
It's right in the files changed. If you click on
Oh,
files, there's a second file where you can skip the first one. Yeah, there it is. And so there you go.
all right, hold on for a second. I got too much stuff open on my screen here. Okay.
So I feel like every single case of an adoption is going to be very unique to that particular project and subject to many strategic questions and long-term support of that project and other things.
No, I think that's a good call. And so and I don't think that we can figure out all the edge cases here. What I did want to present here is that hey, look, we drafted some thoughts together, and I think invitation for folks to leave their feedback and commentary as well, Matt. So I mean, I linked the PR in the doc, so please feel free to comment on it and add feedback. Very open to it. Again, what I really wanted to surface this up to was to the steering committee and get their feedback hey, look, directionally we think this is probably helpful. It looks like I need to fix that formatting and that markdown didn't work the way I wanted it to. But it essentially was like a 3-step or a 4-step process, right?
And we should probably go back to, if we're talking about adopting projects into the project, we should also probably go back to having the stable alpha beta concept, you know what I mean? Like where we have, and deprecated or whatever. So like we have a life cycle system, probably.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Andre?
Yeah, I think this is great. So Francisco, I will definitely review, this initial document. I think a couple of things that I want to share. So we briefly discussed this last Friday with other folks in the steering committee. I think like one idea which came up that probably we should have a Kubeflow incubator GitHub org. I know that Argo has the similar concept for Argo Project Labs, which basically a list of the project which wants to be part of core, but mostly maintained by other organizations, other set of folks, right? And the project could live there for a couple of times. Another idea was to follow the Apache solution. I think Jonah proposed it basically to, mark the project with incubator, naming. And after maybe like maybe 1 year, we will make them a core, right? Because we need to have a clear conformance and also clear the maturity of the project, right? Being graduated as part of the core.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we can definitely adopt different strategies from other open source communities, right? Apache or Argo, other folks what they're doing, right? And then could see what actually can work for us, right?
So is that something that you all as a steering committee want to figure out, or do you want me to propose one?
I mean, we're looking for other suggestions from the community as well, right? If we can explore what other folks are doing, for example, we explore what Apache is doing, right? Maybe we have, good.
Like an incubation, and then after some consistent, hey, look, it's been in a couple of releases, it's stable, then we can include it in a core. Because I do think that there should be some semblance of process so that not everybody just goes in there for free, and then we end up with a whole bunch of a graveyard of unmaintained stuff. So I do think that there's good form in having the requirement of things having momentum.
Yeah. I mean, but there are two ways, right? The one way is maintaining this outside of Kubeflow org and will be maintained by another, set of people. And another way of just keeping them in the incubator state for some time, and then when the project became mature, right? But maturity means not only being part of the manifest, but also being used by users, right?
Yeah.
Because we need to find adoption from the enterprises on any projects we're going to adopt, right? So
yeah. So I think that I mean, Feast doesn't have the adoption problem, right? That part where that's not where the concern I have is. Nor does it have the contributor problem issue either. Actually, we have a pretty active community nowadays. And so I'm happy about that. I think the thing that I want to make sure I'm thoughtful about is the general case of like new projects, old projects, and what that looks like, and how does that
because we're not like speaking directly to fees, because I mean definitely fees like have a lot of adoption in large enterprises, right? So like we're speaking about like, you know, maybe, you know, other folks who want to join like Kale, Trust AI, you know, like other people are joining an add-on, right? Bento like what we can do with them, right?
right.
And what our strategy there, right? So
And yeah. So do you want me to propose, or are you seeking feedback from other people, or maybe async?
So I think we can start with reviewing this proposal. At the same time, if we can explore, if you can help us, Francisco, to explore what other folks are doing, because like we know about Apache, but maybe we can see, we know about Argo, you want like share this with us, but understand what other folks are doing would be helpful, I think.
Yeah.
I think the most important question that steering committee and maybe the community needs to decide is, are we an incubator or are we a ML platform project? Like, are we a foundation, a sub foundation, or, you know, like, so this, because, and the answer to that question is the answer to the question of if we allow multiple projects that do the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? So, because for example, in Apache, there are multiple maybe projects which can do, you know, similar things, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and same with the CNCF, obviously. But like, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. So
yeah.
like, it depends on what we are presenting ourselves as and what we want to be as a project, because they're very, very different, you know?
I very much agree with Matthew on there. And like, I think based off the documentation that PR, you know, about what Kubeflow is, this ecosystem, I think like, you know, figuring that, having clarity on that might help
So,
us. Yeah.
From my personal perspective, I mean, this is happening across the globe right now, right? Many people do duplicate similar stuff, right? I think for us as a role in the cloud community should be to reduce the duplication and, you know, explain the Kubernetes folks, the CNCF folks, the Kubeflow folks that, hey, we're doing exactly the same thing right now. Can we just collaborate together and actually explain how to run AI on Kubernetes? Because like, I mean, right, you can see it everywhere, right? Not only like in our communities. I mean, Kubernetes do a lot of like duplicating things right now, right? How we can, you know, consolidate this effort and, you know, explaining the power of Kubernetes for AI. I think this should be our end goal, right? And reducing the duplication across different parts of the project also would be really helpful. But it is hard to do because, again, even right now, many people, they try to just start it from scratch, right? They try to start new projects, try to, you know, like doing their own way, right? We can see exactly the same in the KubeCon, right? Conference. A lot of new open source projects being emerged, right? But what is the role? Yeah.
And so just last thing I think maybe in this proposal, what I would love for us to think about and us to maybe even include is some logic about, hey, do you have, is this an existing, are you building something novel or are you reinventing the wheel? And if you're reinventing the wheel, do you have a good answer as to why this is better than the existing thing? Because maybe our clear-cut preference is to not reinvent the wheel, because I think that provides the kind of clarity to that answer. Because I actually think that should be part of the process here, Andre. So if you review that and provide that feedback, I'm happy to incorporate that explicitly, and we can that probably really be a good transparent way. Thank you, Chase.
Yeah, just hopping in here. One thing that when I talk, so I do a lot of talks with end users and try to get contributors for Kubeflow, and I've got this slide where I say the Kubeflow community is cooling the volcanic MLOps tooling in, industry through community, right? So I say, hey, we are helping you find a curated platform based on these tools. And part of the great thing about being us as part of the CNCF is now we can collaborate with more projects than ever. And I think that really lands. And I think that we're at a similar spot to Kubernetes was maybe 5 years ago, where everyone and their mother had a CNCF project. And we all know that giant CNCF landscape. And it's really hard for an end user that doesn't have the expertise, that's looking to maybe solve machine learning problems, but wants a curated tool set to choose from that landscape. So I'm all for us having an opinion, or maybe we offload the distros, but saying that is our goal, is to help integrate and implement and solve these kind of machine learning development life cycles, like Andre was doing with the LLM. And we've been starting to have these documentations on how we solve things, saying that we as a community are being specific with our choices. I think really appeals to end users, for what that's worth.
Well, I have to drop. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, folks. And please feel free to comment on that PR with any feedback, or if there's a typo or anything, please let me know. And thank you a million for collaborating with this, especially Josh. I really appreciate all the time. Happy Tuesday.
Thank you for driving this, Francisco. Thank you.
Yeah, anyway, I think obviously we need to figure that out longer term and decide what we want to be as a project. You know what I mean? That's kind of the first. You can't, like, Feast is separate because we don't have a feature store, but like for other projects, you know, it will raise questions, you know. That's what I'm saying. If someone comes in and has a pipeline tool, let's say.
True. But I think also, like, is it a distribution's advantage to have a different, like, what's the difference between a different data plane and a different feast alternative, different feature store alternative, right? How do we handle these different permutations of Kubeflow as we expand? And what's Kubeflow core, which I think is part of conformance, versus add-ons?
So from my personal perspective, I don't think we should invest. I mean, we should actually, adopt any tool which solve MLOps problem on top of Kubernetes, right? Like, because we need to like build a reference architecture how to do ML on Kubernetes, right? We need to tell people what tools you should use if you want to like do it in the most efficient way, right? I understand that probably there'll be new tools that will be emerged, but again, we should probably guide people to tell them, hey, instead of like building new tool, why you cannot just, modify the existing pipelines, right? Maybe rebuilding the architecture, building the version 3, right, of them, which will actually solve your use cases, right? Yeah, but anyway, it's kind of longer discussion here. So Josh, if you want to move on, we can move forward.
All right, well, let's look at the next topic on the agenda.
Andrea, I put your topic next.
Yeah, it's quickly. So I just want to share that some folks from Slurm workload community. Basically, I think it's the company called Shed behind Slurm. So they will give us ShedMD. Yeah. So they will give us a demo tomorrow during our AutoML training work hero community call. It was a kind of long discussion with us and other HPC folks to see how we can, make Kubernetes more applicable for like HPC workload / like, AI workload. Because right now we can see there is a need for, some HPC high performance computing tools to run training. Like, for example, many people use AMPI today because it's like kind of like more efficient compared to, using the torch run, for example, on-prem clusters, giving the specific device placement. And similar to this, like such other tools like Flux or Slurm right now, kind of like used for model training. So this will be a demo from them tomorrow. So if you're interested, just please feel free to join us, and we can just see, is there any option for us to collaborate? Because with all of our new APIs for runtimes, I think there is a kind of opportunity for us to give a way to deploy Slurm on top of Kubernetes. Because many people run Slurm without Kubernetes at all. They just run it on bare metal and then do training, right? For example, if you take a look some blog posts, even from Facebook, right? They don't even use Kubernetes to train Llama right now, right? They use their own workload manager to do so. But there is still a kind of an interesting trend towards using Kubernetes for portability and other, Kubernetes advantages compared to just using bare metal. And it would be interesting to see from them what we can do there. All right.
So this is a great initiative. There's a lot of folks, legacy folks that are using, the Slurm HPC, and I think it would draw them into the community and start to see the benefits of different parts of the Kubeflow components. So This is great, Andre. Thank you. All right. And the fact that it's on Kubernetes, that's just really cool. Okay. Anything else on that, or should we move on to more
we
helpful
can
version
move
info of package distributions table?
So yeah, this is, it sounds like very boring. If you click on it, you can see the preview of it. This is very much just adding. So the problem that it's, don't look at the actual diff, that there's a lot of code there. Just roll down to the previews. Oh,
Okay.
It's probably gonna load. Yeah.
Oh.
So, oh, maybe.
Happened there. Hold on.
Interesting.
Now I'm back to,
I think just click conversation.
yeah.
Okay. So, once it loads. Okay, so effectively the current table, if you scroll up, if you roll up just a little bit, that's what the current table looks like. The new version of the table, if you roll down, looks like this. Those things that look like buttons are done. They're effectively, so if you wave, you can actually go to the preview website. It'll help people see it. So,
Mhm.
and then you can actually see it from the preview here. It's probably easiest. So pretty much what happens is, it's two things. It's to help people understand what versions mean, because there's no, for a new user to Kubeflow, there's no indication that 1.7 is actually very old, and 1.6 is just unbelievably old, like 3 years old. And so what this is partially to encourage distributions to update, and it's partially to help new users to realize they should be aware what a version means. It's really the purpose of it. It's like, and so what it does when you wave over it, if it's the latest version, it says that, which in this case is 1.9. All these are dynamically generated automatic based off the version that's put in by the distribution. That one's for one version minus the latest. This one's 2 versions minus the latest, which is where it starts going gray and putting a warning sign. And then anything more than 3 versions old gets a skull, because it's clearly abandoned at that point. Or if it's not abandoned, then it raises some serious questions that the user should be aware of. And so yeah, obviously there's the other alternative is to just remove things that are old, but I think it actually is more helpful for users if they see the list of ones that they know have existed in past, you know? Like, for example, we could remove the Amazon one because it's not really maintained, but like, it might be better if people see it on the list as, yes, but it's just not up to date. And of course, once there's a conformance program, then that's a whole separate discussion. But this is, I think, something we can do objectively based off the current information that we have to help just guide people and say, hey, like, I see so many issues with people like, hey, the Amazon one doesn't work for some reason. And it's like, well, we're not really the maintainers of that. And also, it doesn't seem like it's being actively maintained anyway. So please use another distribution. So I guess I just want to know what people's thoughts are and feelings.
Well, this is really cool. I like all the detail and everything. I wonder, you know, this seems like some work to keep this up.
It's automated. It's all automated.
This version info stuff.
Yeah,
when we
everything's
come out with
automated.
1.9 or 1.10, it's going to
Yeah,
be
if
awesome.
1.9.1 gets released, what will happen is if a distribution claims support for it by putting it in their shortcode, the website won't build until you run the script that downloads the information into the website. So it's automated. The only thing that is needed is these JSON files that exist inside the website repo. And those JSON files, if someone ever tries to reference a version that it doesn't have a JSON file for, it says run this script, and I just wrote a script that will automatically get all the information into that JSON file. So yeah, it should, and since those files, the only time you would try to reference a version that doesn't exist is when you're updating. You'd see the PR build fail. So it's very, and it warns you in the build. It says run this script. But yeah, it's all very easy to maintain. And also at the future, we could do things like sorting the table by those versions, but we agreed to sort by alphabetical for now, and I don't want to go through that fight again. So
Will people inherently know to hover?
So go down to the preview and just kind of see what you feel like. I think because it's a button shape, most people would. So that's that deploy. Oh, you can just click that button there, the link, that one. Yep.
This one?
It seems like a very simple change, but it just it's to kind of push people towards distributions that are supported while also helping people understand what it means for 1.7. Like, what does 1.7 mean otherwise? It doesn't mean anything to anyone. Also, I've made it so that the last dot is hidden, but the version is still in the version info. So for the case of patch releases, because again, patch releases don't mean a lot to distributions because they're usually patching the issues that would have come up in them anyway. So obviously, this affects some distributions with a skull. That is going to be. I would encourage those distributions to use newer versions of Kubeflow.
The one thing that I have a little bit of agita on this is that some people want long-term support. So
Sure.
just because it's old, if it works, maybe they don't think it's bad. You know what I mean?
And that's fine, and that's why we're not removing them, right? And this is a warning sign, and the messaging there says, hey, reach out to the maintainers if you want support for the second to latest, but then it's like, you may wish to confirm this distribution is still supported, because in the case of AWS, it's not, right? So, like, it's a way that I'm trying to be as neutral as possible without just suggesting we remove things, because I think that would actually just confuse existing users more. Because there's just so many people using Amazon's distribution, for example. So if Red Hat also, I know that they're wanting to update their version that they're using, but they are, because they're using a mishmash of versions. Again, since we don't have a conformance program, my thought process is if you align mostly to the newer version, you should be able to declare that version. But if you don't, then obviously not.
Yeah, I'm just a little cautious by this terminology here. This distribution may no longer be supported by its maintainers.
So that wording can change obviously very easily. It just
Yeah.
I think the skull's a little aggressive too, potentially. I don't know if these distributions like having a skull next to it.
I think it's pretty clear that like the next step after getting a skull is you get removed from the website, right? Because you shouldn't be able to be calling yourself Kubeflow if you're not within 3 years of the latest version.
Well, I think this has to do with conformance and our policy as a community. And I think that instead of putting in a skull publicly, this is an internal conversation where we reach out to them and then remove it. I just think that this could damage brands. The skull.
So I mean, the skull logo is something that I put in there partially as a kind of highlighting how serious of an issue this is, because like, if someone was only supporting Kubernetes 1.10, right? They're not really a distribution of Kubernetes.
Well,
but it's up to
we
them.
Need to use policy. So like when we say things like you're not really a distribution, or you're like,
that's not what I'm saying on the website. That's just my
personal.
But
but like if we're gonna have these things, and these are great conversations on what we support, let's just make sure we have that in our policies as communities, and then it's much easier to have that conversation of, hey, we want to make sure you support N-2. Otherwise, sorry, we can't have you on the website, etc.
And that's why we're not changing that initially. The short term is just, I want to add information. Again, we can make it so that everything just gets a warning sign if it's more than 2 old. That's easy to change. It's like 1 line of code. The thing that is, I still think the skull is actually kind of important, just because it is a jest. Obviously, it is like saying, hey, imagine using a version that old, but it's like, because at that point, users really seriously shouldn't be using it. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my perspective there.
Yeah, and so maybe what we also do is we educate users on what you mean by shouldn't be using it, and that's part of, again,
that's why it says a warning, right? Like, again, we can make it not a skull if you really don't like the skull. Although I would say that there is a difference between 1.7 and 1.6, like in terms of age. And that's why I wanted a different symbol for the 3 and older, but
yeah, I understand that ideally from Red Hat we should be compliance with recent versions, but I'd like to, if you can discuss a a middle ground because we have most of our components upgraded. We have a mix and match of versions. And when you go from the current version, it looks like we are really outdated. And some components we are really upstream, like with model registry. Pipelines, we are also migrating almost 1.9. Notebooks, the old one, and training for the training operator, we are almost recent. So I
again,
don't
these
know
are
how
self-attestations, right? These are self-attestations. Like if you feel like you are more aligned to another version, then just don't say you're 1.6, say you're 1.7, right? Or 8.
So sorry,
but there is
yeah, go
no
ahead.
way. Sorry, just to wrap up this under here, because but there is no way to do this type of confirms testing right now, right?
In any case, it's not changing the information on the website. It's just putting some information on the website in a different visual format. To be clear, you currently on the website say 1.6. That is, you can change that if you believe it's not the truth anymore. But as Red Hat, I mean, but users should know that that is a very old version of Kubeflow. I don't. If it's wrong, then fix it, please. But if it's like the people are trying to adopt Kubeflow and they're getting stuck by especially that Amazon distribution, but other older distributions as well.
So this is amazing. I think that's, Matthew, what we should put, right? We should say, and again, we don't have a rule, but here are the considerations on running a Kubeflow. Here's the current version. Here's things you may run into running into a version that's n-3, etc. And then let the user decide. And if the distribution says, hey, we're 1.6, well, we've educated the user, and we're not necessarily being the conformance police yet and throwing skulls and warnings on other people's projects.
Well, definitely they should get a minimum of a warning, because if you're 3 years out of date, I mean, again, if it's out of, again, what I'm saying is distributions should update their versions. Like, we don't give free marketing to random projects. That's what I'm saying. Especially ones that aren't participating in the
So
project.
I've made a proposal here. I think that, I'm okay with this. It's a little aggressive on the skull, but I think it's kind of funny.
I
And
think most people would get that it's kind of not like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I appreciate the concern. But I do believe, since this is the distributions page, the distribution should vote on it. So as long as we get a majority of the distribution saying yes, I'm kind of would give a looks good to me from my perspective, right? Barring that, I think it's just a matter of, what comments we get. But in my opinion, if we could get the distributions to weigh in.
So I'm open to alternatives. Of course, the things I'm not open to changing, and I'd ask the steering committee to step in if this was not the case, is that I really want any version more than any version more than, like, currently 1.7 or before should get a warning of some kind and be visually separated. That's kind of my thought process there. That's the only thing I'd want. Andre, you wanted to talk before, sorry.
No, just quickly. I mean, I think I already shared with you, Matthew, but I mean, if we follow the Kubernetes, what they do, right? They don't even put any version in their website. And I think users are smart enough to understand that this project have not been maintained for like, a couple of years. Probably it's
That's not my experience though. Like,
no, but this is, I mean, we should understand why users don't really understand this, right? I mean, if users clearly see this project has been unmaintained, why me as a user, I mean, why I should use it, right?
Of course, and that's why I'm proposing we do it this way, because, yeah.
I mean, they may not know what 1.6 to 1.7 to 1.8 means. I kind of like the detail there. I might go a little bit easier on some of the sculling and the other verbiage, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, the people that are investing should get differentiated, right? I mean, come on.
And we're not saying that people who are contributing but older versions are not investing, but it does raise some questions if you're shipping really old versions of Kubeflow. That's just, it does raise some questions. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think I'm saying that this is awesome, and I totally agree. We want to make sure our customers, or not customers, our users understand this. But if we put this in policy, like as a values of our community, then when they are sorted in a different section, you put that little blurb there, and not only have we educated the customers, but we've educated the distros on why they've done it, and we've done it in a way that's a little bit more professional in saying that, hey, we're focusing on policy and what we agreed as a community. And we seem like we're more of a polished, refined project versus I think like skulls and stuff like this can seem a little bit they're fun, but they're like more community branding versus end users, right? They can seem a little bit more gimmicky. And I think one of the issues we have with attracting like these data science and these more academic personas is they don't want something to seem kind of cartoony. They want things to seem very polished. So having that policy in place and describing the what behind things will help people understand, then distros understand what they need to do to
be clear,
to
that's
upgrade.
what this actually primarily does. Like it gives you information that most people who are new to the project would never have seen. Like what does 1.6 and 7 mean? That's the only thing that's changed. It just gives that information on the page. Right now, that is a serious problem for people because they wouldn't know to even check what's supported because they don't know that that's really old.
So maybe this needs to be a bigger page, right? Maybe this does need to be bigger education.
Well, I don't want to give too much like problems where like as soon as we start having like right now we've kind of agreed the distributions get one table on the website, and it's better than having hundreds of discussions about every specific nuance of every distribution.
Totally. But do we just need a page that's understanding your Kubeflow support and versions?
But then you also have to encourage people to read it. You know what I mean? It's like that's why this is equivalent to doing that. That's
all right. So look, we've got some other things to talk about. We've got to look. We need people to comment on this, right? That's
before we move on. Do we have anyone from distributions here? Maybe from Red Hat on this call?
Well, they probably can't make a response until they've looked at it.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to force that upon them if someone wants to, but it's like obviously as the maintainer of DeployKF, I'm happy with the change. I proposed it. I'm sure I'd like to hear from the other active distributions like Canonical and.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear end user feedback on it too.
Yeah. So I've shown a bunch of end users and they were like, that's interesting that those are really old. You know, that's the main risk because that's the issue that I'm trying to solve here. They didn't know that, new users especially. But yeah.
It's a fair assessment. I think I think we've discussed it. I think lots of good points have been. Do we have anything else that we want to cover here in the last 4 minutes?
Just very quickly, if someone Notebooks 2.0 is progressing well. I'd love if anyone who has React.js or Golang experience and wants to contribute more to the project could reach out on Slack. We're almost have a feature complete controller now. There's like 2 more features. One of them is already being worked on. The other one is not assigned to a person yet. Then after that, we're going to finish building the UI, which would be great. So, and then the REST API as well, which is the Go system as well. So if you want to participate in Notebooks 2.0 as a contributor, please reach out on Slack. Thank you.
So I was thinking about this a little bit, doing some UI work, and there was this template idea of how UI should look and some guidelines and such. And I was like, man, damn LLMs make programming that stuff a lot easier. I'm just wondering, consistency of, building this UI with perhaps other UIs, or is this going to be the latest UI that's been built? Is there any way that we can capture some of this so when the other UIs are built, they kind of try to move towards what's been built by Notebooks, or is Notebooks moving towards what's kind of
There's one other UI being
pipelines,
built,
or what's kind of the thought of how we come together here, right?
So the quick answer there is that there's one other UI currently being built, which is the model registry. That one is currently being contributed by Red Hat. We haven't started working on the Notebooks 2 UI yet, other than like scaffolding stuff. If we end up going the same route as the model registry's UI, then we might end up using Red Hat's patterning system, which they'll have built a theme for Kubeflow for. So then it would just be as simple as doing the same thing again. But I'm still open to people suggesting we don't use that and just use straight React or something. But yeah. Lucas?
Yeah, I'm working in the model registry UI scaffolding right now, and we hopefully will have a first POC in the next following weeks. for you to see. We are documenting everything, so it's easy for everyone to just onboard or get those same patterns outside that. I'm not talking about the component library, which is like that part of where is still discussing, but rather than like how to use context and state management and how like good patterns and so on. So we are trying to do our best to make sure we can get some like really great patterns in the project, so we can then other projects can use that outside of the component library and those specific things. So yeah, that's that. Like I'm really happy to help in wherever UI work we can start doing in notebooks.
Someone messaged, yeah. I mean, that's, yeah. So if from my perspective as a notebooks lead, my kind of process is, as long as someone's willing to maintain it, as long as what's created is maintainable, then I'm happy. Of course, there is some risks to using a Red Hat related project, because obviously it's one of the distributions. But if Red Hat's willing to contribute engineers and it's actually not that, even if, and that it will be maintained long term, even if it's not by them, you know, that's my thought process. But yeah, and having model registry and notebooks use the same UI is better than having two different projects, at least. But anyway, just so if anyone wants to contribute, if they know React, if they're a JavaScript programmer or a Go language programmer, reach out, and I can help find you some cool tasks to work on. Someone typed in the chat something as well. Anyone else want to say anything there?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's Rui from Just AI. So last week, Josh has shown some interest on talking about Just AI's guardrails architecture. Sorry. I mean, we're short of time, but so I can perhaps put a link to a presentation on the architecture on the document, or do it next week. So just to give a heads up.
Yeah, Rui, if you were ready to do that today, I'm so sorry. We should have put you at the first of the list. So
No, it's fine. I mean, other things to discuss. Yeah, I mean, it's just a 5-minute presentation. So if everyone's in agreement, I can start it. Yeah, so let me just share my screen.
do you guys want to do this first thing next time or now? If you want to do it now, that's fine.
I mean,
Yes,
no, I mean,
also
I don't think it's time sensitive or pressing or urgent, so I can do it next week.
Yeah, Rui, if you want to see like more visibility, I would suggest it to move to next week because most of the people
Yeah,
need to
that's
join.
fine. Yeah,
So
yeah, no problem.
All right, yeah, we're at time, so I'm sorry, Rui, that I didn't. We'll put that right at the top of the agenda. I will not be here actually next week. We are going to need someone, or I'll be traveling, so to run this meeting. So hopefully someone else can come in and help to get this together. Matthew, if it's you or whomever. But I definitely appreciate everybody's time and effort here. We're going to close out. Is there anything else urgent that needs to be put? All right. Appreciate everybody's efforts this week. I think it was good discussion, and let's look forward to moving things forward here in September.
thank you.